Okay, hello. Well, I'm going to make a presentation on the work we have been doing the last few years on the work on different landmarks, of Salamone. I will start with a sort of presentation of his work and inside the architectural culture of Argentina of those years. Well, as you see here, eclecticism appeared in the late 19th century, and it was a sort of culture of multiple choices for Argentina. At that time, lots of immigrant professionals, different influences, not only at that time of historicism and eclecticism. And around 1900, the avant-garde arrived in the work of engineers designing grain silos that unfortunately were lost. Some of the best pieces as this Bungi-born silo that was much appreciated by Le Corbusier and even Walter Gropius, that published the grain silo in Buenos Aires as a model for the new architecture of the 20th century. Again, in the early 20th century, we have a very important Art Nouveau heritage that is quite special because it has been the best buildings have been built with reinforced concrete. So we have the innovation of the new style on the side, same building, but all the structure is reinforced concrete, and this is 1915. It's a high-rise building. Then we have different versions and different influences of Art Nouveau from Europe that were arranged and mixed in the work of different architects like Julián García Núñez on the left, or Mario Palanti and the Palacio Barolo. Again, the building on the left was made of reinforced concrete. And to show you the importance of the new technology of reinforced concrete as a value, not only the value of the stylistic art or the architecture of these buildings, but also the technological value that it was in the avant-garde of the period. We have the Palacio Güemes. It's a shopping arcade with offices. Was the tallest building in reinforced concrete in the 1910s. We have to remember that here in the States, the use for high-rise building was steel, but not reinforced concrete, neither in Europe. In the 1920s, the highest reinforced concrete structure, the Palacio Barolo, that is the first version of Art Deco, and finally the Cabana that many of you have seen when visiting Buenos Aires, that is the apotheosis of Art Deco and what we call Racionalismo in Buenos Aires. Again, the tallest structures in reinforced concrete in the world at that time, in the 1930s. So reinforced concrete, it was very important for the development of the best architecture in Argentina starting from the 1900s into the 1950s, even into the 1960s with the brutalism. Here we have several pieces, great Art Deco spaces made of reinforced concrete. As the soccer stadiums that were designed and built to house the World Cup that should have taken place in 1942, but because of the Second World War never occurred. And what to say about one of the building types that is most Art Deco as no other in connection with cinema, and we still have the two biggest movie theaters still in place and having different kind of shows, the opera and the Grand Rex. One of them made of concrete and the other one made of metal structure. And then we arrived to Salamone. Salamone was born in Italy. He came as an immigrant in the early 20th century into Argentina. He studied in Córdoba, architecture and engineer, as you see here. And most of his work was done in only 4 years. His great work was designed and built between 1936 and 1940. And Salamone was touring part of the Pampas, south of the capital city of Buenos Aires, in the southern part of the Pampas that go into Patagonia even, the coldest part of the Pampas. And as you see here, in only 4 years, he designed and built some 71 projects. These projects were in relation with a strategy of the governor of the province of Buenos Aires to upgrade and renovate the image of his administration and the administration of the different municipalities of that part of the province that was only conquered and added to agriculture and cattle raising production in the late 19th century, about 1880. So all these towns you see there were founded around 1880 and 1900. So when Salamone arrived there were only 50 years of being founded. So the contrast with the architecture that is not it's a low structure, 1 or 2 floors, with sort of very simple architecture, eclectic or historicist architecture. His buildings and all his design had a great impact in the cityscape. Well, this is in the middle of 1930s, when Argentina also was in the middle of sort of big boom of the avant-garde in different fields, in the arts, in literature, but also it was 1930s was the decade of the big boom of reinforced concrete and cement constructions. Argentina has no coal or iron production, and at that time lime and cement was produced strongly in the center of the province of Buenos Aires. As you see, the most important cement factory was Loma Negra, that provided all the cement for the constructions of Salamone and other works on those years. And you see the workers that were able to build this reinforced concrete structure. It's a picture that resembles a little bit the workers with the tall structures made of steel here in the United States, but they were working with reinforced concrete. So there was a culture of reinforced concrete in private work, but mostly among public works, the federal buildings that the national government built all along the country in the, in the 1930s, like here, the New Deal with President Roosevelt on all the public works, and a lot of infrastructure was built, bridges, grain silo, water tanks, and the technology was all reinforced concrete that appeared following different schools of designing and calculating reinforced concrete, the French, the Italian, and the German. The German finally imposed thanks to their manuals and the systematizations of all the design and calculations. So Salamone work is all made of cement, from the structures of reinforced concrete to the stucco work, the precast or the cast, what you call here the cast stone, the prefabricated pieces, The terrazzo floors, the terrazzo pieces, and even the stucco work outside was made of white cement mostly, sometimes color, but no painting over the final surface. Here we see some of his works in the phase of construction. In 4 years he had to travel a lot to the different towns to supervise the work. We presented very quickly town halls. A few years ago, a small folder was found with some of his drawings, the original drawings, where we see he even designed several alternatives for the same building, the municipal, the town hall building. The final, and some of them are very monumental and not placed in one of the blocks of the city. Usually the town hall during the colonial times and even the 19th century and early 20th century were placed on one side of the square. In some cases he placed it in the middle of the square as part of an urban composition. So Salamone design and work covers from the urban and landscape into the detail, as we are going to see. Town halls and this sort of ornamental fountains and planters. Again, more town halls, different designs and alternatives to the composition of the different buildings in the middle of the squares with the surrounding design of the squares. As I said, from the structure into the details and even the lamps or the urban furniture. So, town halls were one of the most sophisticated designs because they have to include the design of the interior spaces, the decoration, but also the lighting fixtures, the furniture, the ironwork. So it was sort of brigades of artisans that worked together with him to accomplish his designs all in 4 years. And the squares. And as I said, cement was even used for the sidewalk tiles in different colors. So cement was the king of the materials used by Salamone in a masterly way. Here, urban furniture and equipment, benches, fountains, planters, lampposts. It's different because he never repeated the same design from one square in one town to another. Not even the lighting fixtures for one town hall were the same for the other. And another architectural type very interesting were the slaughterhouses. Slaughterhouses that were built in each of these towns in order to renovate and upgrade the processing of the cattle and the processing beef factories, let's say. So he designed some 20 slaughterhouses in the outskirts of different towns, following a very severe hygienic and functional design, but also giving different styles and forms, as you see in each of these projects. This is a Balcarce slaughterhouse that was one of the first of these buildings renovated and restored by a small group that is very active group in the network of the Salamone towns in Balcarce, with the president of the association, Ana Ramos. And as you see, the slaughterhouses follow function, but in the forms they propose very interesting aesthetic designs. Again, the Uomini, and finally the cemeteries. The portal and the gates of the cemeteries were some of one of the other architectural types that Salamone designed and built in those years. These are the four most important. The cemeteries in Argentina are typical of the Spanish tradition or Latin tradition, with a lot of sculpture and small buildings inside for the tombs and the grave. And in this case, he modernized the entrances with these monumental gates in the form of a cross. In this case, again, the cross of the sentence RIP, like you see here. This was in La Preda Cemetery, and you see the impact not only in the townscape of these small cities, but also in the land of the pampas, the fields. This is La Preda Cemetery from the front and on the back. And then the Saldungaray Cemetery, another version with this round background. And which were the inspirations and the coincidence with other trends, other proposals? Well, they started as in Argentina, architects and designers, as this. There was not a strong, history or landmarks like in other countries, in Europe or even in Mexico or in Peru. The pre-Columbian architecture is not so important in Argentina, so these designers were looking to other places, what was done at that time in other places. So Salamone was looking at his original Italy, the Novecentismo, and even the fascist proposals of the 1920s and 30s, but also to German Expressionism, or, as you see here, inspiration from the Mendelssohn Tower for Einstein in Berlin, for the Wamini Town Hall, in some cases from the French decorative Art Deco, or even some ideas and some inspiration from the Netherlands, here again from France, and also from films. He was very fond of movies and cinema, so he was very attentive to all kind of designs that he saw on the presentation of the movies or inside the movies, like this one. We have found these images of one Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. I think it's 1932, 1933, and you see the design of the stage design, similar what he proposed in. And now we come with to the preservation program we developed after the International Congress of ICATS in 2019, that was very important in terms of many of you from different parts of the world coming together to this Salamone land in the south of Buenos Aires, for local people to realize that despite the advertisement of the Salamone work or Salamone images in the networks, it is important that people come to the place to appreciate and to have personal contact with Salamone work, that some of them were not in a very good shape. So we started with the National Commission of Monuments. I was one of the members till last year of the National Commission of Monuments. A program and to work from that level, the national level, with the local municipal administrations in the recognition, appraisal, survey, and the development of different preservation and restoration programs for selected buildings in each town. We started in 2020 during the COVID, during the lockdown. As you see, many meetings through Zoom and different platforms to get together to realize common problems, common proposals to have a common approach for the identification, the survey, the preparation of the restoration projects. Was very important the support of different institutions from the national level, National Commission, the Commission of the Province of Buenos Aires, Cooperatives Foundation, ICAS, ICOMOS, and the Centro Cultural Salamone, as I said, the first one that restored and renovated a slaughterhouse, and that has assembled the first network of the different people from the private sector, but also public officials of the municipalities, to put together encounters or meetings each year. And in those years, they were virtual. So the approach was to have every small group in each town. Sometimes there are historians or the director of a small museum, of the direction of culture of the municipality, to go through the archives and collect the information on their buildings, on the buildings of that town. By collecting that information, it would be also important for the other towns, for the other groups in different towns, because sometimes the documents were lost in some of the towns or the municipal offices. And in some cases, we found, for instance, specifications for the construction of one of the buildings that were done all at the same time. So they served for us and for all of the members of the different groups in the different towns to realize and to have documents that their testimonies of how those buildings were built. For instance, these specs show how the cement was poured or how it was cast. So by working in a network, it was very important to get that information from one place to the other to compare and to complete, the maze of the documentation that was split in different places. Then we insisted very much on trying to find in the different archives as much original documentation as possible, then to make accurate surveys of the buildings as in their current state, as you see, the architecture, how are the plans, the elevation, the sections. Then we recommended to do this sort of preservation grading to each building from red, orange, yellow, and green, sort of preservation code for the project, but for maintenance also. Well, we prepare this kind of form or fish to do the different surveys as example, both functional, and then a sort of campaign where we did mock-ups and we worked with the different small teams in the different towns, either architects from the municipalities or from the private sector, to discover and make the surveys and made mock-ups of restoration in different buildings and of different techniques. Well, finally, all this was assembled in the different projects. Each of the municipal offices prepared, and well, with laboratory analysis, of course, different reports, and finally, in the middle 2022. The money appeared thanks to the cooperation between the National Commission of Monuments and the Ministry of Public Works, because most of Salamone buildings are included in the National Register of Historic Places, were national landmarks. So the national government disposed money and for different projects to finance different projects in the different towns. They gave the money to the municipal government, and municipal government prepares the documents and the bidding supervised by the whole group of the technicians of the National Commission of Monuments to develop the project and finally start restoration work. Here's a work in progress. This is in Pellegrini. This is a square in Balcarce. So there are different tasks that needed to be accomplished, from restoration of surfaces to consolidation of structure, cleaning of facades. In the case of urban equipment and fountains, the reinforcement of the structures, all this is cast stone, as you see, has to be repaired or recast some pieces. And here we have some of the final results. So this is an ongoing program. It was very interesting because it was inspired by a small group, by the visit of many of you international visitors during the 2019 Congress and the tour to the Salamone works, and also people in the places that ask the mayor or the different officials there to start developing these projects. So this is continuing, and we hope that in the future more of these buildings. Now there is a work on 14 of the Salamone works in different towns will continue in the next year. Well, thank you for your attention.